This call is now.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you're all doing well. It's November 14th, 2025. We're here for the Colorado Forest Health Council legislative meeting. We have some great presentations and guests today. Let's go ahead and do our roll call, please, Courtney.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to roll down my list. Samantha Albert.
Morning, all present.
Good morning, Samantha. It's great to see you. Pat Dorsey.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Pat. Christina Bury.
Morning.
Good morning, Christina. Commissioner Jody Shattuck McNally.
Present.
Good morning, Commissioner. Mark Morgan.
Present.
Good morning, Mark. Julie Stensel.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. Commissioner Veronica Medina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner. And Allison Lerch, I know, will be joining us about 15 minutes late today. But we have a very full house, which is great. It's nice to see everyone here.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Let's go ahead and thank you. We have quorum and appreciate everyone being here. We have some important topics today. Let's go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, and let's do approval of the minutes from November 7th, just last week.
Are we approving? I'll move to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second place, just like last.
You're great, Mr. Morgan. Thank you so much. So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion or any other changes? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Okay, those are now approved. All right, so let's move on to our next agenda item. Ooh. Talking with a presentation from our legislative council staff, and we appreciate you all being here today. So let's start. And Bill, thank you for being here today. We're very grateful. And we're going to just hand this over to you. And I'm going to be looking for hands raising questions. Courtney, if you'll help me facilitate that. I'm almost parked, and then we can move from there. Thank you.
Great. Hi, everyone. Bill Zepernick. I'm the manager of the fiscal note section at Legislative Council staff. Let me pull up my presentation real quick, and I could share that with you all. If I can figure out how to do it. I'll share the whole screen. Oh, can you enable sharing with me?
You should have that function
Okay, let me try again.
already enabled.
Okay. Yeah, it's. Oh, I have to select. Okay. Okay, great. All right. Can you guys see my presentation?
We can.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'll go ahead.
Perfect.
Actually, let me move you guys to my other screen. Sorry for the technological issues here. Okay, so like I said, Bill Zepernick with Legislative Council staff. Great to be here. So just, I'll go quickly through what is a fiscal note, how we work with state agencies, the type of information we're looking for when we canvass and when we talk to agencies about fiscal impacts, and what sort of goes into fiscal notes. So just to start off, what is a fiscal note? It's an objective, nonpartisan analysis of the fiscal impacts of proposed legislation. Legislative Council staff prepares that with input from agencies and other sources. It's sort of a point-in-time estimate. They could change as bills go through the process, and we have to rely on information that we're getting and a set of assumptions, and that sort of helps us build the fiscal note. We always are trying to go for the least cost way of implementing a bill while also sort of balancing program effectiveness and the goals of the bill. There's lots of ways that we can.
Bill seems to be frozen for me. For anyone else?
Yep, for me. too.
Yes, I was just wondering.
Yes,
if
for
it
me
was-
too. Okay.
Me too. I was starting to think maybe it was me. Thank you, Courtney.
I'll give him a chat. Bill, I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you. It looks like maybe he's changing something. Oh, it looks like you are muted, Bill. Ah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I
Yeah, thank you.
undocked the computer and this might work better. Let's try this. Okay, so, all right. So like I was saying, fiscal notes are a decision-making tool for legislators, but they're not binding. They don't have to follow the information that's in it when they make their appropriation decisions. And fiscal notes are required by law, so they're, every bill that gets introduced during the legislative session gets a fiscal note, except for the long bills, supplemental appropriation bills, things of that nature. So what's in a fiscal note? The most popular thing, at least, is the summary of the legislation. It's it's kind of the best place to find an up-to-date summary of the bill. We put that in the fiscal note. And then we go through all the different fiscal impacts that could possibly be in a bill. So things like changes in revenue from taxes and fees, moving money around from different funds, changes to agency expenditures or workload. We get to talk about Tabor a lot. It's always fun. And then, we also go into impacts to local governments, school districts, that sort of thing. And then if a bill requires an appropriation, we note that. And then our friends at the Joint Budget Committee staff put that together as far as what goes into a bill.
Hey, Bill, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but at least I can't see your slides right now.
I can't either.
And I know you worked hard on them, so.
Yeah. Sorry. Let me reshare the screen. Sorry. Sorry for the technological problems here. All right. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do we get our information for fiscal notes? Mainly from you, from state agencies that are affected by the legislation, since you guys are the ones who will be in charge of implementing a bill. We also talk to local governments, but we'll get information from legislators, partisan staff, lobbyists. We have a lot of in-house expertise, so we'll also rely on that as far as where we get information about maybe prior legislation that might have been considered in the past. We do independent research, look at academic studies, other states who have implemented similar ideas, and then of course our own professional judgment about what's like a reasonable estimate. But fiscal notes do represent the independent assessment of LCS, and so that's what the value that we add to the legislative process. We do, if you're ever in a situation where you're responding to a fiscal note request, through the DNR budget office, or someone asks you, hey, help respond to this fiscal note, we do provide a couple tools for agencies to use. So we have a set of common policies, which are sort of like the values, the assumptions that we ask agencies to use when putting together numbers, for sort of some shared assumptions about that. So like how to calculate FTE cost, that sort of thing. We give a response worksheet for agencies to fill out. It sort of walks them through the information that we're looking for about like a summary of information. We like agencies to summarize the bill in their own words rather than just copy it from what's printed on the bill, just so we understand that we're interpreting the bill the same way. And then any useful program background, data and assumptions. you know, and just go through the different impacts that might be affecting your agency and spelling that out. If a bill has, you know, cost of some sort, we do provide a worksheet to help sort of guide you through calculating those costs. Let's see. We are making some updates to this year, so something to look forward to closer to session. We also maintain a contact list of all the different fiscal note coordinators in state agencies, and we'd share that with agency staff just in case you need to coordinate with another agency. So that's a useful tool. And then lastly, online on the fiscal note website, on the General Assembly website, there's a lot of information, different memos, resources if you want to dig in more. Also, we have some tools for state agencies, you know, just like those ones I mentioned, the common policies, the response worksheets, all that. So yeah, so I'll skip this. And so I think one thing that I was told that you guys were especially interested in was sort of what drives program expenditure impacts, you know, the things that we're kind of looking for when a bill is affecting an agency. What are the things that drive fiscal expenditure impacts in particular? And so I tried to come up with a few big categories here. So it's like bills that create new programs, new grant programs, add a new benefit for someone. Those are obviously a fiscal impact for the agency to do those type of things. Also, sometimes a bill will change something that an agency does, that they add something that they need to do, or changes how they currently do something. And so those sort of procedural changes will, you know, obviously impact the you know, how you guys do your work and maybe what resources are required. Some bills are permissive, you know, so may versus shall, you know, do you have to do it, or is it kind of an optional thing, or is it, you know, dependent on funding or some other factor? And so we typically assume that legislators want their bill ideas to actually happen. And so we'll typically estimate the cost, even if something's permissive, but then it's, you know, it's ultimately up to the legislators to, you know, appropriate that funding. Common expenditure impacts, you know, these are, if a bill's impacting your agency or program, you know, some common things that come up are, you know, staffing, FTE, you know, and we kind of ask agencies to look at like what exact type of positions required, how many hours, is it one time or ongoing, you know, how does a bill affect what existing staff need to do and how they interact with any new staff, and how does it fit within your organizational structure. Sometimes computer systems, things like that need to get updated to implement a bill. That's pretty common. You know, legal services for rulemaking, general, you know, legal counsel, that sort of thing. You know, and then, you know, in Department of Natural Resources, you know, there's obviously lots of grant programs, things like that. We ask you to, you know, sort of look at like, what does the bill require? Is it like a statewide program? Is it a small pilot program? Is it meant to be statewide or focus on a small number of entities? So that will help set the scope and resources required for the grant program. You know, also how much staff does it take to administer it? Does it align with an existing grant program? You know, vehicle mileage, that's something that comes up, people driving from state parks to state parks, or, you know, that sort of thing. You know, and then if a bill is affecting things like legal services, computer systems, risk management, vehicles, you know, we do ask agencies to coordinate with, you know, Department of Law, Office of Information Technology, Department of Personnel, you know, about those impacts. So some tips for estimating fiscal impacts. You know, we really look for that expenditures are tied directly to the bill. You know, so it's not, it needs to be driven by what's in the language of the bill, and not like, say, making up for an old budget issue that didn't get funded, or, you know, something like that. You know, FTE is based on that many hours, you know, that sort of thing. Justifying a non-standard cost. You know, we always like to know the fund source that's required. Is it general fund? Does the agency have a cash fund that could support something? Is there federal funding available? If anything's touching on a like a agency's budget request, if the legislation is related to that, we definitely like that to be flagged for us. And let's see. So sometimes if we don't agree with an agency or if there's some uncertainty, we'll definitely reach out to agency staff to sort of try to discuss this, figure out like how does the cost identified by agency fit with the requirement? If you didn't adhere to the common policies or you didn't justify some cost, or sometimes there's little technical discrepancies, like the bill doesn't start till January, but you had the cost starting sooner than that. We'll work with agencies to sort of fix those type of things or work through any disagreements. So let's see. Typically, we give agencies 5 business days to respond to a fiscal note request when we send a bill out. And typically, the budget office will farm that out to program staff and give them 3 or 4 days, and then they'll take a day or two internally to review it, and then they send the response back to us at Ledge Council. If you're ever working on a bill and you need more time, definitely just reach out to the analyst. We could work with you on deadlines and timing. It's obviously things move fast during the legislative session, but we're happy to work with you. Once we publish the fiscal note, it goes to committee and we get to do it all again. Amendments to the bill will get put on, and we need to assess the impact of those. And so we'll always reach out to agencies about amendments if we think that they're significant. And so, sometimes bills will get sent to the Appropriations Committee or the Finance Committee, and that will affect sort of the timeline for when we need to update the fiscal note. Things that affect the general fund will often sit for months in the Appropriation Committee until after the long bill, but then cash funded bills will move faster typically through the appropriation process. Amendments are available on the General Assembly website in real time. So as soon as they're offered, staff clicks a button and they'll show up on the website pretty quickly. And so definitely look for those. Sometimes it's hard to track through a bunch of amendments and how they affect a bill. And so there's a thing called a pre-amended bill that we could provide to you, or you can find on the website, that sort of incorporates all those amendments that have been adopted by a committee, even if they haven't been formally adopted by the entire chamber. So that's a useful thing to look at. And so then once we work through those amendments, we'll publish revised fiscal notes. We kind of try to get updates out for the key points in the process. So when bills go to the Appropriations Committee, when they go to second reading in the first and second chamber, and then when the bill moves over to the second chamber for that first committee. So we don't necessarily hit all of those stops, but those are, if amendments have been adopted, those are common places when we'll update the fiscal note. And then after session, every fiscal note gets a final every bill gets a final fiscal note. And that sort of takes account to of what the final action by the General Assembly was on the bill. So just to show you who we are, we have a bunch of people working on fiscal notes, 10 core analysts, 6 economists, a couple people who staff committees and write fiscal notes, our intrepid staff assistant Marie, and then me, my deputy, Aaron Reynolds, and then Greg Sebesky is our chief economist who supervises the economics team. But altogether, we work on about 650, 700 bills each session. So it's a lot of work, counting all the revisions that we put out. It's more than 1,000 published fiscal notes each year. I'll skip that. So yeah, any questions? I could stop.
I have a quick question, and then Mr. Morgan, if you don't mind. I was curious about, when you talk about local governments and things, sometimes fiscal notes, and I know it's a sensitive topic, but I have to bring it up, especially for counties, that there are costs pushed down to counties that are fiscal, unintended consequences or fiscal notes that happen for the local governments that maybe don't happen for the state agencies. And I know that really have not had that mostly attached to the fiscal note, but there are some consequences. I know we're up to about 6 or 7 million a year from the last from 2020 from legislation that's added onto our mandated services. So I'm just wondering, how do you guys ever think about that or look to get some information at least to consider to with the analysis? I'm wondering about that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we look at. We do include a local government section in the fiscal note that goes into that. A lot of times it's kind of a narrative discussion of how a bill might affect local governments. Obviously there's 64 counties, a couple hundred municipalities, thousands of special districts. So we can't really get into the line by line budget impacts to any specific local government a lot of the time, but we do try to note when costs are increasing for them. Sometimes there's state funding streams that will, go down to the locals that we might indicate need to be increased or, to help offset those mandates. But, ultimately it is up to the General Assembly to, appropriate the money and to pass it down to the local governments. So, there are situations where the fiscal note will have a very detailed local government impact, and then the legislature is like, yeah, we don't want to do that. So, so there's a lot of factors in play, but it's definitely something that we think about.
Mr. Morgan, and then I think it's Courtney next. Did I miss someone else's hand?
Yes, does your agency review the process? What if the legislation proposed would be there would be savings involved with it rather than an additional cost? Does your agency do the review of that? And then also, what if the proposed legislation or bill would be generate revenue? You do the assessment of that, and then how that revenue would be used or redirected.
Yeah, definitely it could go both ways. If a bill's eliminating a program, we'd show that reduction in staffing. Most legislators like to run bills that do new things and increase costs, but in the current budget environment, definitely we're seeing a lot more of things that go the other way and reduce costs. So we will show reductions, definitely. And then the second question about revenue, we'll estimate revenue impacts from whatever source, whether it's taxes, a new tax, a fee on businesses, whatever it might be, park fees, Keep Colorado Wild. We did the fiscal note for that one and estimated how much that would bring in through that, fee on motor vehicles that funds parks, for example. So, we do both sides, the revenue and the expenditures.
Thank you, Courtney, and then Pat.
Thanks, Bill, for your presentation. You noted kind of qualities of bills that lead to fiscal impacts. And I'm curious if there's, I don't know if this exists, but I'm trying to help create a list of qualities of bills that don't lead to fiscal impacts. Like what types of bills, because this is actually not an agency. This is a advisory body. The Forest Health Council makes legislative recommendations to the General Assembly. And, we're being told this is a tight budget year, and we're kind of wondering what are different types of policies or legislation that might not have fiscal impacts. And I'm not a legislative expert, so I'm trying to kind of pull the people who work in this field a lot, and they might be able to name some types of legislation.
Yeah, could definitely go back through and find some good examples, but I think some common categories or things, like I said, things that are permissive, so it's like maybe giving the authority of the agency or a local government to do something, but it's kind of subject to available resources. That's one way. There's some bills that, obviously they don't do as much, but may they just clarify how a process works or codify an existing practice, just to make sure that it continues. That's something that wouldn't have a fiscal impact. Obviously, things that actually, I used to give the example of things that rename something or something like that might not have a fiscal impact, but then sometimes you have to like reprint logos and stuff like that. So maybe that's not the best example to use, but so yeah, so I think those are some common categories.
That's helpful. Thank you.
All right, sorry, everybody, I got kicked out, got back in, thank you. Pat, you're next, thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of the legislation and policy that we're looking at is about forest health or wildfire mitigation. Do you guys, I mean, one thing that strikes me, the cost of preventing a wildfire is really different than the cost of putting one out, right? Or suppressing or rebuilding, repairing a forest after it's been damaged. Is that part of the equation or part of your calculation?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, we really look at the direct impacts of the bill, you know, and so we won't necessarily go into like sort of second order impacts. Sometimes we might discuss them kind of narratively, like for example, if you invest in some fire prevention thing, it could, you know, obviously lead to savings later if wildfires prevented, but I don't think we necessarily calculate what that savings would be because, you know, it's obviously, we wouldn't know when's the next wildfire going to be. If we knew that, we'd, you know, obviously be in a much better situation. We could just tell you guys, but so yeah, so that's what I'd say. You know, focus on the direct impacts of the bill.
Thank you. That makes sense.
Two.
Okay, I think it was Julie and then Mr. Morgan. I might have that out of order.
Thank you. And thank you, Bill, for your presentation. Piggybacking on Pat's question there, if it is a second tier impact, is there, and you mentioned you all may discuss those impacts in the narrative. Is there something that someone proposing the bill could do to assist in that narrative, or do you go back to the, you know, to the party proposing the bill and discuss that potential second tier impact if there were a real benefit, for example, using Pat's example, where to take an action came with a cost, but the potential for future savings because of what the initial investment does is significant. How would one effectively get that information out there if it's a second tier issue?
Yeah, definitely. You know, sometimes we could figure those ones out on our own. You know, we'll be able to say, like, oh, if you do this prevention thing, it could lead to savings there. You know, obviously, if the agency if you know whoever's responding to us flags it, we could discuss it. But we're also happy to talk to like the bill sponsors or the stakeholders, whoever's involved. If they want to flag that type of information for us, we could consider it. You know, also, even if something's not in the fiscal note, it's definitely something that we encourage people to talk about when they testify in committee, you know, because maybe that's more of a benefit of the bill rather than like a sort of immediate budget impact that might need to be considered. So like, you know, people are definitely free to go testify in committee and say, this is a great idea because it could save us money down the line.
I think there's those numbers, it's either 1 to 6 or 1 to 13 for every dollar invested. I think that even the U.S. Chamber of Commerce says for every dollar it's 13. So important, I think, great point, Pat. I think I have, what I have in the queue is, Pat, you have another hand up, but I didn't know if it was still up. But then I would have Mr. Morgan and then who is after that? Go ahead, Mr. Morgan.
Yes, back to this exact same question. What if the secondary impacts had already been documented and the research had already been done? Back to Pat and Julie's question again, there was significant studies that have been done in the state. State Forest Service did some quite a few years ago, and there is a lot of historical data that shows a very good scientific correlation. I mean, this isn't just a supposition. If we're going to get this, we might get this. Would that information, what I guess I'm saying, That's a scientific fact. It's been proven through multiple studies. That information is readily available. It's been generated by a lot of sources.
Mhm.
Can that be introduced in your process somewhere?
Yeah, that would definitely be something we'd be interested in seeing, those types of studies, those types of things. Yeah, we actually have a memo on this on our website. Like,
A
it's
line item in your process. I want to see a line item in your process that takes that under account. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely something we look at, information we're happy to receive and evaluate. Like I was saying, this actually comes up a lot in tax policy more than some other areas, but where those dynamic impacts might impact future tax revenue, for example. And then some people will try to argue, oh, the tax set will it'll pay for itself by generating more economic activity. So that's kind of the common situation where we talk about this, but it could also happen like in this type of scenario I could see. But we're more likely to include the avoided cost or note them more prominently when there is like that sort of scientific or academic research backing it up. Like, so for example, just like another example, like if you increase taxes on tobacco products, studies have shown that consumption will get reduced. So we account for that when we estimate the tax impact of raising the tax. We know that the consumption will also go down. So we do that offsetting impact. But I guess one thing to sort of note about what fiscal notes are doing is like they're really a budget tool. So they are showing that they're useful to provide information to legislators about those sort of future avoided costs. But there's also a large focus in fiscal notes about like what's the immediate budget adjustment that needs to occur. And so it's like if you have evidence saying this prevention activity will reduce spending, I don't think anyone wants us to say, okay, well, now you should cut money to the counties or cut money to this department because this prevention activity is going to be so effective. I think maybe it's more of an argument for the bill that down the line it will have these savings. And so, so it's sort of a balance between like what's the immediate budget impact that we need to sort of account for versus like sort of the discussion of what's the sort of long-term impact of the bill.
Is your immediate budget impact 6 months, 1 year, 5 years? What is the window for that?
Mhm. Yeah, we typically look at 2 years, the upcoming budget year, and then the next, out year. And but we do we could adjust the scope of the fiscal note to account for wherever the budget impacts is occurring. So a lot of times legislators will be like, oh, wow, that's a big number. Let's push it out 3 years so it won't show up in the fiscal note. And then we just kind of move the fiscal note out and they're like, oh, my strategy didn't work. So, yeah, but like, for something like avoided cost, if it's not necessarily specific to a specific budget year, but it's just a general impact that could occur, that's something that we could discuss.
One of the problems that we have here is we are talking about managing a resource that, say, one rotation here for timber in the state of Colorado is 100 or 100 plus years.
Mhm.
At some point, we have to do some averaging here, averages, and essentially we're involved in a long game. We just finished writing a 30-year vision for our forest policy. And that's what we have to look at. And we have to look at financial policies that mirror these long-term visions that we have for what we're trying to do. So I'm trying to understand, we're putting a short-term set of rules on a long-term situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd say like the fiscal notes, it is a somewhat limited tool just in that we're focused on the budget impacts. We could discuss those longer term things, but that's also something that, the General Assembly can consider from testimony, from studies, from other things. We're just one piece of information that's informing the process from the budget side, but these bigger picture issues are definitely something that I think the General Assembly wants to consider, definitely. And so if we could help facilitate that, and it makes sense in the scope of our document, I think that's good to do.
Will you have a representative at the proposed breakfast that we're going to have for educational legislators?
I don't know if I've been invited, but yeah,
Or-
no,
Invited.
no, but so I see.
Any other? I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish
Oh,
your thing.
I was going to say, I see a note in the chat about, I would say, calling them avoided cost rather than return on investment. I think that's good terminology. We kind of, we'll do that.
Studies. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Oh, and then the question about do fiscal notes require executive approval? And the answer is no. We do work with, obviously the executive branch agencies, but, it's our own independent product that, and sometimes we disagree with the governor's office or the executive branch agencies. We do have a process though to show the executive branch perspective in the fiscal note. It's called the departmental difference. So if we disagree with the executive agency, we'll give voice to their position, what they think the estimate is, and then explain why we didn't include it.
Great. Christina, is your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, Bill. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that that's good terminology. I learned the hard way from a lot of chief financial officers when I would say, well, this is a return on investment. And they'd be like, it's not putting $1 back in my pocket directly.
Yeah.
And so learning that terminology of cost avoidance was really important for me. And I think it helped me kind of translate the benefit to more of those budget focused finance folks. So yeah, some of the studies I think that have been done by CSU, State Forest Service, Colorado Forest Restoration Institute, have been, I think, termed like cost benefit analysis. So we do have that information not on a statewide scale, but more on a localized scale for mostly like for water infrastructure and cost savings there. So I'm happy to follow up and provide any of those. They're public, and it was definitely a great messaging tool that I've used throughout my career to showcase the benefits of this work. So I'm happy to share any of that.
Great.
Expectations are moderate.
Any other questions? Okay, so Bill, if we have other questions, like me, I wake up at 4 in the morning and I'm like, hey, I should have asked that question. Can we send those to Courtney and have them send to you if we have further questions?
Yeah, definitely happy to respond. I could share my contact info with Courtney, and anyone can reach out at any time with any questions, or talk to me during the session if you have bills.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, if we can share your contact, that would be great. All right. Well, thank you for being here today. Happy Friday, and we appreciate the presentation. That was really helpful. I learned a couple new things. That's awesome.
Great.
Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
Mhm.
Have a great weekend. So
Thanks.
let's move on to our next agenda item, which was going to be a presentation about the pine beetle outbreak in the ponderosas. I believe Director McCombs was going to come today, but I don't see him. So Christina, did you know anything, or you going to present at all, or?
Yeah, no one, Matt was double booked. No one really reached out to me or Matt specifically about this. I mean, James gave us a heads up, but we didn't know it was like a formal presentation. So our entomologist, our forest entomologist, Dan West, I think would be the best suited to provide a more formal presentation, but I'm happy to give an update. I can share, everything that I know about mountain pine beetle. But yeah, I'll work with Courtney, I guess, on scheduling our entomologist, Dan West, to go over that information. But As far as a update on mountain pine beetle, there's been some data, there's been surveys done at the state level through U.S. Forest Service and our own entomologists that are seeing trends of increasing activity for mountain pine beetle along the Front Range. And so it's concerning enough, the projections are concerning enough that it was time for Matt and Dan Gibbs and James and Allie met with the governor to brief him on the situation about a week ago. So the governor is aware, and Samantha, if you're still, Samantha's still on, awesome. So one of the recommendations that the government had, or the governor had, was to work with OEDIT. So Samantha, there will probably be some coordination or communication coming your way. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And also that the Gov was thinking of you, which is great. Yeah, of course. So basically right now it's in a communication phase where, you know, we put together some talking points internally for the State Forest Service. We have our expert in-house. Matt put together an op-ed that has gone to the Colorado Sun and the Denver Post. Neither one of them have picked it up. There's a lot going on right now in the world, so I get it. But so far, oh, thanks, Allie. Yeah, so far, you know, the media hasn't picked it up. But we're hoping to get that in the media. They just need to actually pick it up. So we have kind of an internal communication task force that's working on the communication strategy for this and how we specifically work with counties, with our partners, NGOs, on the messaging for this. And Allie, if Allie's on, I was going to say, I mean, you were the one that was in the Gov's briefing. So anything that you want to add?
Yeah, thanks, Christina. James was there too. You know, I don't think I have really anything to add. It's just that this conversation that we had is has spurred more conversations. So I was late to this meeting because of a potential insurance group conversation of how this, increased, wildfire risk or, might also affect insurance. And then I'm going to be speaking with Gov's office after this meeting about potential next steps as well. So I would just say that the briefing came with, it just went really well. And we will just continue conversations on how we can support each other and that it's on the governor's mind.
Great, thank you, Allison. I had to put this on the agenda because I had run into Director McCullough and I thought he was maybe going to be able to just pop by for a minute, just at least give us a little more details. But I think a more formal presentation would be great. I know he's going to start going to counties up and down the Front Range starting in December, and so I appreciate just getting some more information because I think this does impact us all. And I do know I have a meeting also with the governor's office today, Allison. That's why I'm down here in Denver. So I'm wondering if this will come up in the insurance commissioner. So that might be an interesting question for the insurance commissioner who's coming today. So I think for Commissioner Medina is first, and then Mr. Morgan. And I'm sorry if I have that out of order.
Doesn't matter.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan. My question is, or I guess really a comment, here in Archuleta County, we are surrounded by beetle kill, and it's been a huge problem. And when I talk to our forest reps locally, they said, Veronica, if we have $10 million, I would tell you we're not going to spend that $10 million to get the beetle kill down, and because we need more than that. And we have a lot of roadblocks there's no roads in there to get to it. Then you have all the conservation groups that are, so a lot happens after the fact of when the beetle kill is there, because we have it on Hinsdale, we have it on La Plata side, But I guess my question is, because we heard in April when the Forest Health Council came to La Plata or to Archuleta County, we had, I can't remember his name, he came and said, I'm here, just so happened because the what did you call it? The pine beetle is already on the move, right? And so what can we do to prevent it? And then, and once it hits, how are we able to actually utilize that timber? Because it's beautiful timber when you can harvest it and build homes. And if you can actually keep it in your community, that's a win-win overall. But so those are my questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Definitely sympathize with the position that you're in, I think, and being Archuleta County being hit hard. Also appreciate that you think it's beautiful. My house is built with pine beetle wood, so yeah, I think it's pretty. The utilization piece, I think, you know, Mark Morgan can definitely share more on his thoughts on that. But as far as what you do, it's tricky. I think the tactic that we're trying to use is to manage the forest and be able to do treatments and then have some sort of plan for planting, like reforestation, to basically anticipate that there will be tree mortality. And plan for reforestation. I think, you know, we'll have the nursery, we're doing the nursery construction. And so I think that there will be opportunities for reforestation and replanting. But really it is to be able to manage the forest. So that way the trees that are there can be as healthy and strong as possible. So, and then there are some methods, they don't necessarily kill the beetles themselves, but they like relocate them. And our entomologist can certainly share more about that when we get him in to do a presentation for the group. So there's tactics. I wouldn't say it completely eliminates the pine beetle. It's a native insect. And so I think throughout time, there's going to always be like there's going to be, you know, peaks and valleys. But it is trying to make the forest more healthy to try to anticipate regrowth too, as kind of a coping mechanism, essentially, to make sure our forests stay forest into the future. Let's see if there's anything else that I can think of in response, but no, I think that's yeah, unless anyone else has any other thoughts.
I thank you for that. But when we talk about, you know, planting, replacing those trees in the forest when the forest has been hit by beetle kill, but still, as again, I'll use us as an example, we've got thousands of trees that are standing dead.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't make
roads.
sense to me that, you know, we're going to do replanting when we can't even harvest what's there. And now it's been there so long, it's not even, you know, my understanding is it's not timber that can be used now because it's been there so long. So we've just got a timber box. And to Commissioner's point, you know, talking to the insurance commissioner, you know, that's one of our biggest reasons why Archuleta County is red and a lot of our people are having a hard time finding insurance, keeping insurance, paying for insurance. But yet there's no plan on how can we harvest it? How can we start eliminating some of that that tinder that's there, because that eventually is going to hurt us. I get all of the other special interest groups, but when does the health and safety of communities around us, when does that take priority? And we're not trying to strip the forest, we're trying to protect it and we're trying to make it healthy again. And with the standing dead there, it's not healthy. So with this new, not a new beetle, but you know, now with the beetle heading to the Front Range, you know, use us as the example. You know, please think about where we're at and what has been done or not done, and you know, how can we make that process better? Because you know, just thinking about replanting is, to me, that is not forward thinking. It's about, if there is standing dead, how do we harvest? How do we do this and get around? I shouldn't say get around, but how do we work with those special interest groups to help them understand what this process needs to be? And it's for the health of the forest. That's all.
Okay,
Thank you.
Commissioner, I'm gonna stop you there just for a minute. We are almost out of time. We have 2 other agenda items, and I appreciate your passion with that and sharing your perspective. It's really important for our discussion. So Mr. Morgan and Allison, can I just have you do a minute each real quick, just so we can get through those last 2 agenda items? Or I just feel like this is gonna have to be a special meeting so we can have this discussion. And
First
understand all the things. Go ahead.
Is this bug a reinvestment of Dendroctonus ponderosa? Is that the bug? Okay.
Of the, can you repeat that, Mark?
Is this recent outbreak another outbreak of Dendroctonus ponderosa?
Oh, I don't know what that word means.
The species of your beetle, which is what I think it is, but I wanted to be sure.
Okay.
Number 1. Number
Our
2.
entomologist will know what
Okay,
what
great.
word you just said, and they will know the answer. I just know it's a mountain pine beetle. It is in pond. You're right in that it's targeting pondos. It's not lodgepole, so it is pondo pine.
But they can
Okay.
breed a lodgepole, but that's the species,
Yeah.
Venus
Yeah.
species. All right, number 1. Number 2.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and Allison, can we have you wait, or what, do you want to go ahead and add your comment or?
2 or 3 things I'd really like to say.
No.
Number 1,
Commissioner, I put my hand down. I don't
Okay.
need to speak,
All right,
but I'd
go
love
ahead.
to hear from.
I'd
from-
really-
Go ahead, Mr. Morgan.
Veronica Benita's comments here. That species of bug, when a forest gets overgrown, it gets up around 120, 130 basal area. That's when you get an outbreak. If you're looking to manage ponderosa, you need to keep that basal area somewhere around the 80 range and under. It's traditionally gone in waves in this state by doing that. In answer to your 3rd question, what do you do with the dead and dry timber? At this time, most of it is economically unfeasible. You need to reduce the catastrophic fire potential of it. To do that, you can't afford to haul the material out of the woods. So there are a lot of things you can do to put strategic fuel breaks by manipulation of that fuel, get it on the ground. There's roller chopping, there's harvesting. There's a whole bunch of alternative methods that you can work with. And generally those methods drop your cost from somewhere around $2,500, $3,000 an acre down into the $300, $400, $500 an acre range, which allows you to treat enough acres to get some safety zones. And that's what I would recommend you investigating that at this point in your county. And if you would like some help with that, I can try to show you some possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. So let's move on to the next topic. Obviously, we need to expand this meeting. Courtney, can you go over the cadence and show up the next deliberation meeting, please?
Sorry, Jody, there was a little background noise. You were just asking about the calendar? The next meetings?
Yeah, Courtney.
Okay. So right now, we do not, so the next meeting is the day after Thanksgiving, and at least on, let me share my screen. In this calendar, we have removed the meeting after Thanksgiving. We have a deliberation meeting December 12th and a deliberation meeting January 9th. I think it's a little tricky since 2 of our regular meetings were following the day after Thanksgiving and the day after Christmas. This committee might want to reschedule those since we talked about finalizing the recommendations at the end of January. I think that the next Forest Health Council meeting will be in early February. So it might be beneficial to add a few more meetings.
Allison.
Commissioner, I would recommend that we not only add in a meeting or 2 in between, since we have those holidays, but also extend our meetings to ensure they're 90 minutes. I believe we need at least the potential for 90-minute conversations.
I think that's a great suggestion. So do we want to just add those on right now? And then do we need to take a vote to add meetings too? Do we need to vote on that or just add them?
I think if you all just can clarify when you'd like to add the meetings, I can put them on the calendar.
Okay, let's do that. And then let's go ahead and move on with 5 more minutes about the legislative breakfast and get some people to sign up. Is
Can
that
you all
okay?
confirm what dates you'd like for me to put on the calendar?
Well, I have 2 suggestions. One suggestion I have for everyone is instead we meet Friday, December 5th and Friday, December 19th instead of the 12th. That would then at least give us an every 2-week cadence. However, and then at 90 minutes, so 8:30 to 10 o'clock. I got at least 1 thumbs up for that. With limited time, we could also move on to the next agenda item, Commissioner.
Can you say that one more time? Sorry, I had to go talk about flock cameras and Pano AI real quick. Sorry.
Courtney, can you share your screen? What I recommended, Commissioner, was instead of, and thank you, Courtney. So instead of meeting on Friday, December 12th, that we change it to meet on Friday, December 5th, Friday, December 19th at 2 90-minute meetings. So then we have at least a 2-week cadence in between.
Okay, that I'm gonna have to squeeze that in. I could probably only do an hour on the 5th because we're at the Colorado Counties Incorporated, and I also planned, since we didn't have a meeting that day, to take my mother to a very important doctor's appointment. So I can't reschedule that because I need to have some big wigs in the room. But I don't. If we can do an hour on the 5th and then on the 19th, I think we can get that to work. Does anyone have any objections to that? Okay, let's come prepared. Courtney sent out an email about adding concepts and discussions, go back and review things. I'm hoping you all do some homework, come prepared and think about some ideas. And then if we're going to do the other meeting on the 9th, when do we add the pine beetle and entomologist? Do we just see where we can fit those in the other meetings? Allison?
And then I'm wondering if we should still keep the meeting on the 12th. I know that means we're meeting like every week for, I'm sorry, my internet is bad. I'm going to turn my camera off. But if we want to hear about mountain pine beetle as soon as possible, I would say we'd want to hear about it in December.
I agree. So let's go ahead and keep all 3 meetings. I'd much rather have them on our calendars than we can make them shorter or take them out if we don't, but I think we do need to have that discussion. So and I know it's the holidays, but we have to really have some important discussions on this. And so I'm hoping you all will kind of join me as we try to navigate some pretty unprecedented, unpredictable, and challenging times. So thank you all for your engagement and your patience, because I do think it's going to take all of us to have this discussion. So we're almost out of time. Is everybody okay moving on? I apologize. We're having a big conversation on flock cameras. So I wanted to just add, that we have some important things to sign up for and help with the legislative breakfast. I know some folks have talked about helping sponsor or pay for it. We need people to come help sign up. And I was hoping, Courtney, I don't know if you made a list of what we think we need, but if you could please sign up and show up early, stay up to clean up, that would be great. So if you, Courtney, logistics, you want to cover that real quick?
Yes. Allison put together this great list of things that are needed for the legislative breakfast. So there's a few items that people can sponsor directly, and we've confirmed that the best way for sponsorship is for members of the council or organizations who would like to sponsor to pay for these things directly. So DNR can get the bids, can place the orders, but then someone from the council, a sponsor, would call and pay for the items directly as opposed to running the money through DNR. So for burritos, there's an estimated cost of $675 to $750. This could be one or multiple people paying for this. Coffee around $300, and these are to feed and caffeinate about 100 people. Pat had talked about ordering cookies, and I think Pat might be on that. And then you all had talked about other swag. I don't think you all have come to a consensus about what you'd like, so I think that's still up for discussion. And then ways people can support that's not monetary. Christina and the State Forest Service is helping us with some like design for the event. And so we're looking to have different success stories that go along with each of the 30-year vision's themes, like a success story about fire adapted communities, a success story about resilient forests and watersheds. So if people want to help pull together success stories, that would be helpful. And then under logistical support, you know, we're going to need people there early. We're going to need people there setting up. Maybe people could help us with invitations. So I don't know the best way to get this out, Jody. We can talk about it right now if you want to extend
Yeah.
the meeting, or I can send out a sign-up sheet.
Let's just
via
vote really
email.
quick to extend the meeting by till 9:35, just so we can honor everyone's time. Do I have a motion to extend the meeting to 9:35?
A motion to extend.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Okay, so let's keep rolling. Thank you all. I also have been working with Christina on this content. That's how we kind of came up with that QR code, so we can show some videos and because I do think the legislators are going to get a lot. They're starting later this year than normal anyway, so about 2 weeks when they actually get started. So I've been more than happy to volunteer. Sorry, am I too loud? Sorry. I'm sorry. To that to hand deliver those, because I know sometimes when they go through their aids, they might get lost. So I'd be more than happy to get those hand delivered. And we can also maybe have us email to the legislators. But I think if we mail them invitations, there's a chance they might get lost in the pile, but I think we could email like a graphic and also hand deliver. So I think that would be a great thing to do. Also, I do want to continue to help with working with Christina on the content. And then can we set up a spreadsheet? I'd be more than happy to do that, Courtney, unless you want to, but we can put this all in a spreadsheet and maybe send it out through Courtney and we all sign up for other things. That would be great. Does that work? Allison?
Yeah, and Commissioner, we've got something like that put together actually with timeframes and everything like that, so we can send that out.
That would be great. Thank you for being forward thinking. Appreciate that, Pat.
Yeah, I was just going to volunteer to help Christina with some content that might be wildlife related.
That's fantastic. Very, very, that will appeal to some folks we want to appeal to. Commissioner Medina.
Yeah, I would just say when you send that out, if you could also, put a brief description on what it is that you're looking for as far as success stories, that will help us also to get people directed towards you. And I'm happy to help with all setting up and breaking down as well.
So make sure when that gets out to sign up on the spreadsheet. And Mr. Morgan.
Yes, I would sponsor the burritos for you. I would commit to that right now.
Cool. Well, we'll put you on the list. Anyone else want to help? Let us know.
And
So we're at 9:35. Mr. Morgan, do you have other things you wanted to do? Say.
yes, I would also be willing to help if you wanted some content from the timber industry side of it for Christina.
That's fantastic. Thank you for your generosity in helping with your knowledge and also with buying the burritos. Thank you. And Julie.
Excel would sponsor the coffee.
Fantastic. Well, many hands make light work, and I appreciate you all so much. This is amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you all I know it's really appreciated, and I think we want to have this really be up, be a really successful one. It's not going to be perfect, but I think we can really hit it out of the park with, because we all have a passion for this and lots of great information. So thank you all. I mean, we probably won't see you before the holiday, so I wish you all a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. I hope that it's restful, restorative, and that you get to spend it with those that you care about, and that you take some time to recharge. So with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn.
Thank you, Julie. Mr. Morgan, second. All those in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we're adjourned. We got through a lot, some really important conversations. Have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.
Bye, all.